Hey everybody, it's Dan from Lazertoyz, and today we're going to build a truss. Okay, I'm going to show you what all parts you get, and I'll show you how to put them together. So we got the wings, we got the fuselage, you got the upper part of the fuselage that actually is going to go in the back here. Got the front part that's going to go up there. We have a rudder. We actually have the vertical stabilizer, or control surface, I guess you'd call it. This would be the stabilizer. It's control surface. The horizontal stabilizer and horizontal control surface. Alright, we've got all that. Your wing reinforcement. This is your push rod material. And this is your horizontal stabilizer reinforcement, which is a piece of balsa. Vertical reinforcement. Then you got your hardware package right here, which gives you a whole package of goodies that we're going to use. Alright, we're going to start off, we're just going to get the wings started. I like using a hot glue gun for putting everything together. It seems to work good for me. You can use foam tack, hot glue, CA. It'll all work on EPP foam, and this is nice flexible EPP foam, so it'll work out pretty good. The only part that I like using foam tack in, because just for speed of assembly, is for the spar, the wing, and this is made by Beacon, and it's really nice, nice little foam glue. And what I'm going to do, first off, I'm going to use that to glue the spar in, but I'm going to put the two halves of the wing together. So we want to get these wings together pretty good. We want to stay away from where we're going to put the spar in. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a new glue stick in here, and I'm going to glue all the way around the wing and kind of go around where the spar is. And I put a pretty good amount of glue on that. Then I'm going to put these two halves together on the tabletop so they're nice and level, and move these pieces out of the way. And I'm just going to hold them for a little bit, make sure they're lined up really nice. And then I'm going to squirt a little bit of glue down in the crack in between them. Okay. And kind of hold them together for just a couple minutes here. If you get any oozing up, just don't burn yourself, but I just push it down in there, and then I usually just roll it off with my finger. Alright, and that's probably going to be good enough. Now if you get a little bit underneath, just give it a little twist, it'll pop loose, and you'll be fine. And now we're going to put the spar in. Move this out of the way so you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to load this this little groove up all the way across with foam tack. Alright, and I missed a little bit here, so I'm going to go back and hit that. Then I'm going to take, there's a smooth side and a rough side to this, I noticed. So I'm going to take the rough side, I want to put that down first. Push it in all the way across. Make sure it's nice and level and straight. Give it a nice eyeball so you can see it's nice and flat right across there. If you got any extra foam tack on the top, just spread it in for now. And well, another thing with foam tack, if you get it on your fingers, you can just roll it off too, and it keeps your fingers from getting all messy. Alright, we got that in there. That's the wing pretty much started. Going to move that off to the side, make sure that stays level. Alright, next thing we're going to do, we're going to take our horizontal stabilizer, we're going to add the reinforcement to the back side. The way I'm going to do that, you've got two sides, it's a rectangle. So the thin side you're going to lay on top of the horizontal stabilizer. So I'm just going to put some glue all the way across on that. Hot glue that is. And I am going to glue this right on top. And again, make sure that's level. Make sure that it's up against there. And straight all the way across. And you should be good. And there we go. And I'm going to set that off on the side. So that looks pretty good. I got a little bit of glue on my mat. I'll just wipe that off. Okay, that one's ready. Now we've got the vertical stabilizer. So this is actually going to go like, let's see, it'll probably look best like that, wouldn't it? Okay, so this is going to go on the back. So we're going to get our reinforcement on here. And what we're going to do is actually going to stick up a little bit. We're going to trim that off afterwards. So we're going to add this on here. Put a little bit of glue on there. There you go. We're going to stick it up above there just a little bit. And kind of center that on there. Alright, that looks pretty good. Making sure it's centered between the two sides. That works pretty good. Okay, like that. Now this one's got a little bit of a gap that I'm going to fill in with glue on the side. And make it kind of look nice. Alright, that looks pretty good. So I got that on there. I'm going to trim that off with an X-Acto knife a little bit later. Lay this down. And we'll be back to that later. Okay. Got those two pieces. Now, this is the fuselage. And this one, if you notice, it's a little bit shy on each side. So the distance to the edges is a little narrow, and what you can do, massage just a little bit, pull it out and kind of make it work. Okay, and spread it without breaking it. I mean, you can heat it up a little bit too. It'll probably work pretty good. Alright, now you're going to run control rods through this. But I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But we can actually glue it on there first. And we'll see how it looks now. Okay, that's better. And can actually, if we wanted to, we could glue one side and then spread it a little bit. But I'm not going to do that. And if it's in a little bad, a lot of times you just put a little bit of glue on it. Now if you notice back here, your stabilizer is going to go in the back, but you want this to come out almost, I would leave it just a little bit short, maybe 1/4 inch, because we're going to put the push rod through there and it won't hurt anything to be a little bit more forward. So I'm gonna put glue down here on both sides and kind of measure by laying that on there how far we want the glue up. And same thing on the other side. Okay, and while that's nice and hot, we're going to start back here about 1/4 inch forward, lay this down. There we go. And check, make sure both sides are even. So it looks good. Okay, that will work. Alright, so if you've got, there's a little step there, it's maybe 1/16 of an inch. I'm just going to go down through here and give it a little fillet with the hot glue gun. Now, I use this push method, and if we can zoom in a little bit, I'll show you how this works. Okay, we're going to start right here. Now I'm going to push, squeeze the trigger and get a little bit of ball in front of the hot glue gun and just kind of push it forward. works really good for making a fillet. Alright, so if you look down through there, it's clean and it looks good. Now I use, the glue sticks I use are like a clear, you know, you can't really see all the way through them, but you can see light through them. And they're like a medium temperature. I get them from Doris. We also sell them here at Lazertoyz. The glue gun I use is a dual temperature Doris glue gun. We sell those too, but it has a low and a high on it. And I like it because you can start off on high just to get it to warm up a little bit quicker. Then I switch it to low and use it on low. Alright, anyway, back to building. So we're going to set that off to the side. We're going to look at our hardware pack here. And here's another piece that I use. I'm going to use my foam tack glue on. Alright, we're going to glue the landing gear piece in. Now you've got two pieces and they're milled out a little section here. Alright, and the way this is going to work, this is going to go up in the plane like that, and your landing gear is going to stick down like this, okay? So you're going to sandwich these together like that, and we're going to glue them together. So I'm going to put foam tack in here in the groove, and I'm also going to glue around the piece, and I'm going to put my gear in here. Alright, then I'm going to put the top piece on. I'm going to glue it together. And what I did is I clamped it in a vise for a little bit. You can probably just put a weight on it, it'll be fine. But I'm going to clamp it in the vise and just let that dry for about an hour. So I'm going to put that in the vise and clamp it together. Okay, so that's going to be your landing gear. Next thing we have our gear, and there may be a little film on here, white film. Just peel that off, and that's where that's your landing gear that's going to go on there. These are your axles for your landing gear. We got screws, and they're going to give you hinges and linkage stoppers and control horns and all that stuff. You want to make sure you don't lose those, so we're going to keep them off to the side. The linkage stoppers they use have a little retaining ring on them, so try not to lose those. There's 4 of those there, so be careful not to lose them. And if you want, we have the linkage stoppers which take screws, so you could order those extra. But alright, now we're going to go to putting our hinges into the elevator. And it's kind of nice because your rudder can go in at any time because it's separate from your elevator, so you can glue that at any time. So we're going to put I'm going to show you just how to put the hinges in your rudder, and then the elevator's the same way. Just use 3 hinges on your rudder. You only use 2 hinges on your rudder, 3 hinges on your elevator. So that makes it kind of easy. Now I'm going to do what I'm going to do is put a slot in the balsa, and I'm also going to trim that top piece we were talking about. So you just want to make that even with, just cut it so it's a nice even across there. You can use like a blue magic marker on there if you want. I don't know that it's really necessary. It doesn't look bad without it. So I'm going to go about a ½ inch above the bottom, and I'm going to make a nice little slot right exactly in the middle. And I'm going to slowly go down through there and get into my EPP 2, and we're going to make it about the width of the hinge that we're going to put in there. I'm going to do the same thing on the top. Alright, and you want to make sure you stay right in the middle. If you need to, draw a line, but it's not that difficult. Eyeball the middle, and don't stab yourself or anything. These knives are very sharp. Okay, I'll cut that in there. I'm getting into the EPP now, so I'll get that in there. Okay. Now I'm going to take my foam tack glue, and I'm going to, if your glue, the top of your glue starts to build up, just roll it off. I mean, it's amazing how easy it is to clean before you put it back together. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the tip here of my hinge. Not too much, because then it's going to push up and it's going to jam up your hinge. Alright, so I'm going to slide this in there. And if you see a lot of glue when you're getting near the hinge, just wipe it off and get rid of it. You don't want to get glue in your hinge. That's an important thing. You just want enough glue to hold the tip of the hinge in there. Okay, and go right up to the end. Make sure your hinge moves. Okay, same thing on this one. Just going to put it on the end here. And just a light coat. That's all you need. And I'm going to push it in. That one I didn't put too much on, so that's good. And I'm getting it in there right up to the hinge. Make sure your hinge moves. Make sure it's straight. Okay? Alright, so both of those are good. Then I'm going to match up my rudder on the back side, and I'm going to put a little slot right where it's going to go on both of them. Okay. And we'll flip it up, and I'm going to cut a little deeper so we can get our hinge in there. And you can see it. If you need to, draw it on there with a marker or something. You should be good. Alright, so good there. Same thing with this side, only you're going to do both at once. You're going to put a thin coat on both sides of the hinge. Thin being important. Okay, then make sure it lines up. Get it in that slot that you cut. There we go. Same on both sides. Okay, get in the slot, and then you want to make sure you line up with the right spot. And I'm going to open this up just a little bit. That's one nice thing about the foam tack, it gives you a little bit of time to work with it. So, alright, getting it in there, and we're looking good here. And I'm pushing it up to the, right up to the hinge on both sides. And I need to cut this just a little bit deeper so I can slide down in beside there and cut that just a little more, and we're good. Alright, that's looking good. Alright, so we've got a hinge there, and you can see it's like right up against there. There's just a little gap, but we're good to go. That's all you need, and that should dry in there very good. Okay, so we're ready to go. Do the elevator the same way. And alright, we're going to put the battery compartment in. I like to actually sink it down in there. So I outlined my battery, and it is actually about 3/4 of an inch back from the flat area where you're going to put your motor mount. I use like a 5-in-1 tool, or you can use a putty knife or whatever, but you're going to have to get it pretty hot. So I got this little got a little torch here, but you can use your stove, you can use whatever. Heat this thing up on the edge. You want to get it pretty hot. And you could probably use a hot heat gun, but it's going to take a while. So we're going to warm this thing up, and then I'm going to go down about ½ inch on the edge, so that ½ inch down from the top, I should say, so that we've got a nice spot to mount the battery. So you want to be kind of steady-handed when you do this. Alright, let's see if this is hot enough. I think we got it hot enough. Gotta turn my torch off here. Okay, so alright, I'm going to come across here. You can see it's really hot, yeah, but it works good. And you got to get this thing really hot to get it to work nice. But I got that one pretty deep. A little deeper than I thought. Okay. So you can see I made that pretty deep. The battery is going to drop down in there. And it sticks up about ½ inch or so. So it'll be nice. That's good enough. You can put your heat tape in there. And you got to remember, it doesn't have to look pretty, just so it serves the purpose. And that should work good. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fit the cockpit on there. Or we're going to get this ready to fit the cockpit on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave about an inch of this front part, the upper cowl, I guess you would call it. And if you draw a line all the way across, about 1 inch up, and just cut all the way across, and draw a line and make sure it's kind of even, and then you can get it off of there and make sure it looks pretty. But the important thing is it's gonna fit on there, and this is gonna go in front. Alright, so I've cut about an inch back on here, and I'm gonna glue it down. So I'm gonna set that on there. I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on here, the bottom on both sides, and then I'm gonna hold this down, push it right up against there, and glue it down. That way the front part of the cowl is on there, kind of centered on both sides. Okay, this will allow me to put my canopy on there, and then I can make this removable. Now you can do whatever you want. You can actually put a screw in there and hold it down if you want, or you can use magnets in the front, put pins in the back, whatever, and it should be fine. You can even, put a rubber band around it. It doesn't matter. It's however you want it to look. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a couple of pins in here, so it pins into this piece, and 2 magnets in the front. And that way or actually 4 magnets in the front, and that way that'll go on there. Alright, it's got my hinges in my elevator, so, and that works good. So you want to measure everything and make sure your elevator is centered, and you want to make sure your elevator is square. And really all you have to do is hold it up against the front and it should be square. But you really need to measure both sides. I measured on the front edge. So I got about 6.5 over there, and you've got, well, looked out about 6 7/16 I need to just move it slightly that way, and I'm just going to glue the sides, both sides, and I'm going to glue the back a little bit underneath, and then I'm going to press this together. Make sure it's all the way forward. And you can see there, I left this slightly forward, and I'm going to run a push rod down through there and put my control horn right in the back here, so it'll move it up and down with the control horn. Okay, now that's set up a little bit. I'm going to do the bottom side, and now's a good time to eyeball it and make sure that it is straight across the back. So if you look, it's like straight across the back. Everything looks good. My measurement was good. So we've got our stabilizer on there. Alright, next thing we're going to do, we're going to put the vertical stabilizer. And if you notice, my plywood, or my balsa wood, is just a little bit too long. So I'm going to trim that off just so it's even on the bottom, but I want it just a little bit higher than the rudder. That way when I push it down in there, this will act as a stop, and my rudder will be up above the end. So I'm going to test it in here first, and slide it in, make sure everything looks good, make sure, okay, we hit the stop there. There's a front, there's a part where it goes straight down, and you want that in there, and you want your stabilizer just a little bit above your fuselage. So alright, and I'm going to hit on that balsa, and that looks really good. So I am going to glue that in there. Make sure, again, that looks vertical, and you can use a square if you want. Make sure that looks good. And I'm going to glue both sides with hot glue and the front. And get your stringies off there. Then I usually move it around just a little bit, get that glue in there. And that looks excellent. Alright, so we've got our fuselage looking like a fuselage, and we got a rudder, and we have an elevator. So we're getting there. Okay, so next thing we're going to do, we're gonna glue our wing in, and again, you want to measure and center the seam. So measure on both sides, and it may not be perfect spacing on your everything else, but it looks like about 1 3/4. Actually a little bit bigger, 1 5/16 on either side. Looks like it will center your wing in the back. It's 1 7/8. Actually 1 7/8 looks like it's the number. Okay, so we got 1 7/8 to center the back. Check the front. About 1 3/4 over there, and about the same over there, so about 1 3/4 in the front. Okay, I am going to glue the wing in, and I'm going to glue down in the seam here, and we are going to need another glue stick, so I'm going to grab that, make sure I don't move anything. Okay, I'm going to do the front side. Okay, and then I'm going to glue the seam. Now, you can glue underneath the wing if you want, but I find it's pretty hard to get this wing to fall off if you glue it all the way around. And if you hit that hard, you may want it to fall off. So that's it. You kind of check your square too. Make sure that everything looks good, and if you have one of these mats, you can kind of eyeball it and make sure everything kind of looks good, which it does. Got a slight bit of movement I can make there. Okay. But it looks real good, guys. Okay, so our wing is in. And we're looking pretty good there. Alright, everything is glued in nice. Our glue is dry. Now you can, if you want, you can go over this spar with hot glue. I find that foam tack works really good. Next step we're going to do is get the servo holes in for the servos. I'm going to place mine in the cockpit area and test them all out before I put the cockpit on. But you can also mount them on the side toward the back if you want, and kind of route things a little bit differently. You have to route it along the side. But I like them in the cockpit area. That way I run all of my wires through the middle, and it's a neat installation then. This is your push rod wire. The wire's actually inside of here, and if you cut all the way around, kind of roll this, and you'll see your wire's in there, and that will slide inside of this tube. This can go right through the middle and come out the back, and we can hook our control horn back there. And then you want to cut this a little bit short of the servo, and then make sure you have enough wire to get to your servo. Make sure you have enough movement so that you don't hit your plastic sheathing when your push rod moves. Alright, I'm going to get all that together and I'll show you how that's set up in a minute. Okay, we want to start the screw in for the linkage stopper. Alright, and just screw it in a couple turns, not so far that you black the hole off. Okay, so we got this ready to install. We're going to just put a little slot in here. Now you want the hole of the linkage stopper to line up with the center hole on your fuselage. So I cut the slot a little bit to the right. So I'm to the right of where the hole is, so I'm on like the right side of this hole. That's where the slot is. Then I'm going to put glue down there. Okay. And I'm going to put my control horn in there. Now you want your control horn holes to be just about over the hinge. So when it's in neutral, it should be over the hinge. And if you can see, we have that much movement. Down will not be a problem, but it'll move in really good. Now if you need to open this hole up a little bit in the back, just open it up. It won't hurt anything. And that'll it'll give your rod a little bit of room to move back here. So I'll open that up just a little bit. That's going to give us plenty of room. Alright, and what I'm going to do is run this down through there, figure out where I want my servo, and then I'm going to cut a hole for my servo up here in the cockpit. So I'm going to have one servo on one side, one on the other. Now the way I do it, I made a little template that is the size of a servo hole, and I'll put this in here, and I'm going to cut the hole out using the tip of my soldering station. So I'm actually going to burn it out of there by going around it. So I'm going to heat up my soldering station and do that. I'll show you how it turns out. Alright, so we're going to cut our servo holes out, and I just get them cut out there. Alright, and then if there's a little bit in the middle, you can heat that out a little bit. If you need to go around the outside to make it slightly bigger, you can, and that will work out perfect. And you can see in a second here, and wipe off your heat gun with a paper towel, or your soldering station with a paper towel, so it doesn't get all kinds of crud on there, and probably clean it off with some flux after you're done. Okay, so here's our centered servos already. We've got them already centered. Okay, we're gonna just push it in there. See how nice that works? This side we're gonna push in. Now it's basically going to be our rudder and our elevator. And if this one's not going down all the way, just get in there with the X-Acto knife and just clean the bottom out just a little bit. It'll make it fit in there real nice on both sides. Get a little bit of material balled up in there. Servos in, put a little bit of hot glue on both of the ears, and then I'm going to run my wires to the outside, drop this in there, and I want to see a little bit of hot glue ooze out of those holes, and I know that that's going to be in there really good. We'll do the same thing on here. I want the wires to be to the outside. Make sure you don't kink those wires so much that your servo's not going to work. Alright, drop this in here. Want to see that ooze out just a little bit, and get them all the way down. Make sure you have enough gap so they don't touch. Okay, so we got our servo wires out. We've got our servos in there. We've got our linkage stopper in the end. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull out about 2 inches of push rod. Turn this around so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to slide this down through the middle. Okay, and it's going to come out the end here. Okay, I'm going to get it, push this through the hole on my linkage stopper. Okay, let's see if we can get it lined up here. Let's use the little pair of pliers, probably be a lot easier. Okay, there we go, got it right in there. Okay, and for now I'm going to tighten this up just so that we don't lose our position. Okay, you can see our sheathing here slid down. I'm going to slide this back so it's just sticking out a little bit, and that should be pretty good. And that's, let's see, when it's all the way up, see, we have plenty of room. So I'm going to leave it just sticking out just a little bit there. I'm going to take this front part and I'm going to cut it off just a little bit longer. I'm going to make sure my elevator's in neutral. I'm going to cut this about a ½ inch longer than it needs to be. And that's going to be the length of my push rod. So you can see it coming out of there. Now what we have to do is remove some of the sheathing. So I'm going to take my little X-Acto knife and I am going to cut this back about 1.5 inches and go all the way around with my X-Acto knife so that it cuts that sheathing away. Then you'll be able to take that out of there if it's cut far enough down. And we're going to work on that a little bit more. And now it's getting a little dull, so it's a little harder to get it cut. Okay, there we go. So we're gonna put this in neutral, and we're going to, you notice I've got plenty of room here for a push rod to move, and then our control rod is right there. I'm going to start a Z bend. Okay, I'm going to make an L bend, and then I'm going to come up. Alright, make a Z-bend so that when it goes down that hole, it's still in neutral. Now we have some adjustments, so if you're a little bit off, it won't hurt anything. So now I'm going to take my servo arm off. I'll unscrew that. I'm going to pop this off, and I'm going to put my Z-bend in. So it makes it really easy. So pop that in there, put this back in at 90 degrees because I didn't move anything. And right there is going to be where my controls are. Now I'm going to trim this rod off just a little bit because I just like them trimmed off nice. Okay, and notice we're in neutral. Our arm is at 90 degrees. That's where we want to be. These were centered before with our little servo centering device. So, which is one of these little guys. And I use a little old battery, but you can use an ESC to power this. And you can even plug this in and test it if you want. So, plug this in, give it some power, and alright, so right here is the center mark, and you can see we're in neutral. And you can hit the button and test it by going up and down. You can just slow it down. And it looks like our controls work really good. See that? Nice and smooth, plenty of control. Oh my gosh, there's tons of control. Okay, now if you notice our sheathing is moving back and forth. We want to move this back for centering. Unplug this. And what we're going to do, we're going to glue this down up in there, probably about 2 inches. That way our sheathing will not move. So we're going to put a little bit of glue up in here. Okay, and I'm going to push this down and kind of move it back and forth and kind of cover it and let that glue dry, and that's going to make it so the sheathing doesn't move. You can do the same thing on the other end, but I don't think you need it. And we're just we want to keep it in a straight line and let that cool down. Alright, we'll let it cool down. I'll see you in a minute. Alright, I'm going to show you how we're going to run the rod through for the center servos. Now this is the push rod we're going to use for the aileron. Well, I'm going to use it to put my hole in here. I'm going to heat this up. Okay, it's just about red hot there. Don't burn yourself. But about an inch forward from the center of the servo, I'm going to just poke this through until I get to the middle. Okay, and I know I'm through. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the push rod, I'm going to slide it through that hole, and that's going to go right up to the front. And I may have to pull this rod out a little bit. There we go. I'm going to just slide it up through here, and then I'm going to make sure this is going to hook up to the other servo. So that'll work out really good. I'm going to take my sheathing, my sheathing so it barely comes out of here, and this is going to connect to my control rod. So I'm going to glue my sheathing right here. This is going to be the part that isn't going to move. Okay, so that'll keep my sheathing in one spot. I'm going to figure out about where I need my control horn here, and I'm going to get it down near the bottom so that everything's kind of in line, and you want to kind of eyeball that, make sure that it's going to work good. But I'm up down here near the bottom. I'm going to cut a little slot in there. I'm going to take my, actually I'll probably put my glue on my control horn, like that. You know what, I just thought, I put the wrong control horn. You want the screw to be up on your control horn. So make sure the screw that you put in here is facing up so you can adjust it. I almost put the wrong control horn in. And alright, I'm going to glue this one. Glue both sides. I'm going to put it in here, and again you want everything to kind of come over your hinge when it's in neutral. So you want it, there we go, that's looking good. It's over the hinge, and we'll let that cool, and then I'll put my wire in there, and that should work out pretty good. I'm going to cut my sheathing off, do a Z-bend up here. As you can see, my sheathing is way long, so again I'm going to cut it back and then do my Z-bend and get all that hooked up after I get that adjusted. Alright, we've got our all of our push rods in for our rudder and our elevator. What we're going to do, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to put our servo in for our ailerons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right on the front part of the wing. I'm going to burn a hole and run this wire up through there so we can make a nice hookup on the top part. So I think the first thing I want to do is heat our aileron wire up again, the one I used to poke through for the rudder. Let's get this, making good use out of this wire, I guess. Okay, and right in front of the wing, I just want to make a slot and just kind of angle it toward the front, and that's it. And we should be good here. And we got a hole that goes all the way through there. I don't know if you can see that, but it comes all the way up through here, right behind the battery. So that should be good. Alright, I'm gonna see, this should fit right up through there, and we can just push it through with the push rod. Take my little fixture again and my soldering station and put this like right in the front part of this wing. Make a nice little square in there. Then open it up just a little bit bigger. Okay, that looks good. And then we'll wipe this off again. Don't forget to wipe it off. Alright, then I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue on here. And we're going to place it in here. If you notice, I've got the long, there we go. I've got the long control arm on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into this and angle back and put our control horns back here, and you want them at a little bit of an angle. And we're going to use our linkage stoppers back there too. So we're just going to angle these about, you want to put a mark about 1 inch in on either side so you know where to put your control horns. And I'm going to go ahead and put those in, measure those out, and do that. So I'll be back in a minute. I'm also going to push this wire all the way up through there. Okay, we're opening up the holes for the push rods on our aileron servo. Got my control horns in there. You want to get the height the same, and you want to get the angle and everything the same when you put those in. So take your time and make sure you do that. Let's see, on these you want to make sure the let's see, you want these to go in so that, yeah, so that the rod is underneath, the rod going back to the control horns is underneath, and you want to get that on there right, and you'll have to check your centering on that. I think I'm a little off on this one, so we're gonna, yeah, I'm not sure which way we're off, but we'll check that when we get near the end. Alright, and we can always move that. Then you want to lay a straight edge across your wing and set your the bottom of your aileron so it's flat, then tighten up your screws. Same thing on the other side. So set it so it's flat, and tighten up your screw. Alright, it should be, it'll take a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of adjusting, but you'll be good there. We'll probably have to change that a little bit, but they're going to work good, okay? Next thing we're going to do, this is your piece for your landing gear. Landing gear, you want to make sure that clears those rods. So it's going to have to go back just a little bit so you got enough room to clear those rods. Make sure those don't rub. So you'll find that this is going to go back a little bit further, and if you want you can notch these out just a little bit. And what I'll probably do is just angle them back just a tad on both sides. There, just take a little bit of a chunk out. Okay, and then I'm going to put enough glue on here to get it down, and then we're going to glue it again once it's on there. So I want this to like join the back part of the wing and the fuselage, and if you look, that's kind of how you want it to fit. Okay, you see how the angled pieces are going there? Then when you glue this in some more, make sure you actually glue a good part of the fuselage in there, because your landing gear, it needs a lot of surface area to make sure that you don't rip your landing gear off. So use that glue as a good bonding agent between a big portion of the fuselage and a big portion of the wing, and that's going to give you lots of room and lots of gripping and a good base for your landing gear. So we'll get the landing gear on here in a minute, and we'll start working on our nose gear and everything. All right, we're gonna put the wheels on now. You can see I already put the landing gear on. Make sure it clears the push rods, and 3 screws hold that in. That should be plenty strong. Then I put one wheel in. You can see I have a nut on the inside and the outside. I'll show you on the wheel I'm going to put in now. So we've got the bolt going through the wheel, and we have a nut on this side. I want to put it into the hole, and we're going to put a nut on the outside and then tighten it up. And you can put a little CA on this afterwards. Now they use a smaller wheel. This is the wheels they give you with it, and they're fine if you're going on a really low cut field. Well, I fly off of grass mostly, so I opted for the bigger wheels. And these you have to drill out too. Drill them out just a little bit bigger. They work fine. I just like bigger wheels. I'm a bigger wheel guy. So we tighten this up. Make sure your wheel turns easily, and I just tighten this up, and then I'm going to put a little CA on it, and make sure you don't tighten this screw up. That actually, the inside screw actually leaves your spacing, so it doesn't tighten up. Then your outside you're going to tighten up, and it clamps in between the inside and the outside nut. So make sure those are tight. The landing gear, you can see this is already dry. We glued this at the beginning. Put my wheel collar on there. This wheel is just slightly smaller than that. And you want to make sure how it sits right. This is going to go like right behind the motor mount. And you want to make sure it sits good, which it's just about level. I can probably guarantee you that it'll have no problem getting off the ground. All right, then you're going to mark. You can see where I've marked the top of this landing gear. I put a line up here, and what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to take my knife and I'm going to cut under that line about a 1/4 inch deep all the way across, then up from the bottom a 1/4 inch deep all the way to that line, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to cut the thickness of this out, which is about 3/16 of an inch all the way across, and I'm going to peel it out of there and cut right down to where I cut that line across at the top. It's a pretty simple procedure. Clean it out so it's real nice. Then I'm going to fill that with hot glue. I'm going to go all the way across and down, and then I'm going to glue this piece in. Alright, so we've got, so we glued that in there, and you can see the wheel is just a little crooked. You can actually take a little pair of pliers and just kick it over just a little bit. There we go. Now it's perfectly straight, and it's actually moved away a little bit so it's not going to rub. And that's perfect. That's the way we want it. Alright, so now we're going to glue in the motor mount. And the motor, if you actually go down about a 1/2 inch and mark a line, that's about where the center hole on your mount is going to go, which is going to be the center of your motor. So your motor is going to go right smack dab in the middle of that hole in the motor mount, and you can mark these holes for your motor. I don't know which motor you're going to use, but we use the we're going to use the 2210-13, which I believe is 1470 kV, which works really good with the 9.6 prop. So I'm going to glue this in, and I guess the best way to do it would be to glue inside of here and make sure you get enough glue on there. Make sure it has just a little bit of down thrust, and you can see there's a little gap behind it, and that's okay. Just fill that in. That's really a good spot to get some good glue in there for good adhesion. And I usually like spread a little bit of glue around there, because you know, your motor mount, you want it to be in there really good. I usually do a fillet glue on the side, and then I'll do the bottom. I'll do a little extra glue down here too, around my landing gear and around the side. And you know, if it's nice and hot, it'll look fine. And that's also why I like the clear glue, clear hot glue. Alright, so I'm going to dress it up here just a little bit. You notice I kind of do a circular motion. It works kind of nice because it'll flatten out after you stop, and it looks really good. Get all my extra stringies off of here, and you know, you want that mount to just have just a little bit of down thrust. So just make sure that that's in there and you're good, and that'll be great. Okay, so there we go. We're basically ready to get the cockpit on there. I've tested these servos. Make sure you test them and they work before you put the cockpit on, because I am going to make it so I can't get my cockpit on. If a servo goes bad, I'm going to have to figure out how to dig it out of there. You can make your cockpit removable. Then let me know if you come up with a good idea for that, and we'll do a video on it. Or you do a video, that'd be great too. Alright, so there's our servos are centered. Everything looks good back there. Then we can try and make sure they all move good. And they do. You can see how nice it works for testing them. Same with your servo underneath. You can check that out, make sure everything is centered. We'll plug that in. These little servo testers are great. You can see our ailerons are nice and flat when it's on, and we'll check our movement here. There we go, that looks good. That's plenty. Now you notice it moves a little bit more on the inside. I got to free the outside one up a little bit, and that's why you test them, to check things like that out. So what I'm going to do in here is probably clean this out just a little bit, or sometimes it just needs to be exercised a little bit so it goes up, and that's actually looks like all that one needed, just a little bit of movement. If you really need to, you can put a stiffener in here right along the trailing edge to keep it from flexing, but it's usually fine. You don't need this much movement. You're going to use half of what we have there, so it should work fine. Alright, so we're going to center those and unplug it, and then we're going to go to the cockpit here and get that going. Now there is a line all the way around, very faint, all the way around the cockpit, and that's your starting point for cutting your cockpit out. So we're going to get a pair of scissors and we're going to follow that line all the way around and start at that point and then fit it on there. Now there's a real nice, there's an outside one and an inside, so make sure you use the inside one. And I'm going to cut that out and we'll be back to glue that up. Alright, I'm cutting out on the line of the cockpit here. And on the very front, it kind of goes around. I cut the sides on the front. Just kind of move it up out of the way and just get around. And you can trim it afterwards. It's not a big deal. Just try not to ruin the inside part. The outside part you really don't care about. So your cockpit kind of looks like that. Hopefully you can kind of see how that goes. Alright, and this is going to go on here, and that looks pretty good. And it's going to come out, and you can, if you cut this right, it should come out and be in the corner. You can probably make this piece a little bit longer than I cut it. Not a big deal, and you can even have it sticking out a little bit. It doesn't matter. You can always trim it off or whatever, but that's going to be basically where the cockpit goes on. And I use foam tack, and then you get both sides even here, and that looks really good. I think I kind of lucked out on that cut, and I think we're going to be really nice on that. Alright, so I'm going to cut I'm going to cut this so it looks a little more even in the back. And you can actually, if you use a marker and you have a good steady hand, you can kind of draw where you want this to work at, and then draw the line on the, obviously on the outside of where you want to cut. Okay, and I'm gonna just cut that off. That's a little adjustment that I want to use. What I'm gonna do is just go right around here. Cut that off and kind of make it a little straighter than they say on their shadow line that you're cutting out. Okay, and get both sides even, and then I'm going to put foam tack around on the, I'm going to put the foam tack on the cockpit and then stick it on there. I'm just going to go to the outside edge of the whole thing and glue it on. We'll see how that turns out. Alright, now I've got my glue all the way around the cockpit. You want to watch so you don't get your mitts in it. And what I'm going to do is just hold it by the front, by the back here. And I know this is going to stick right on the very front. Then I'm going to drop it down and glue it on there. Now, a little bit of adjusting, but and I got to slide this forward just a little bit on this side so it sticks to the front. Okay, there we go. And then I'll kind of push it down, make sure all of it, all the glue is getting on the foam. Okay, and same in the back. And if you work it back and forth a few times, it'll kind of start stringing underneath there. And if you get it on your fingers, just roll it off before you touch the cockpit again. Alright, and then that's going to be it. And I'll hold it here for a minute or so, and we should have a cockpit on there. It should look halfway decent. Then what I'll do, I'll go around it on the outside and add a little more glue to it and let that dry for quite a while, because we want the cockpit to look really nice. But I think that looks pretty good. Alright, I used a little bit of the green tape to hold that down. And if your sides come loose, just push it in a couple times and you'll be alright. I think that's going to work out really good. We're going to let that dry while we finish up the front portion here. I think what I'm going to do is just make a hinge up front here, so that we can actually just flip this up out of the way. Now I could use a foam tack hinge. I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but that might be what we try here, just to reduce the cost of if you've already got some foam tack or hot glue. It should work out good. But the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut this out a little bit, so that I've only got about 1/8 of an inch of edge up on the top. I'm going to add a little bit of foam tack glue on here, and you can use a regular live hinge if you want. I mean, this is just kind of a quick, easy way to do it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick it up against there. I'm going to pull it apart a few times, get it to string. And this is actually how you make a hinge for the elevator and rudder too, if you need to redo it. And once you stick it on there, alright, we're going to be able to lift it up like that and try it. And we're going to let that dry for a little bit, and we should be good. But get it to string real good before you push it in there. Okay.